Went on a big kick about a year and change ago getting into retro N64 style games on Steam. Was a big fan of The Spy Who Shot Me and a few others, but one I bought and never touched was Valkie 64. I say I didn't touch it, I did, and I got filtered for a few minutes in and didn't give it another thought. For whatever reason though, recently, it's been on my mind, so I sat down and I really gave it a fair shot. Basic gestalt here of Valkie 64 is that it's Ocarina of Time by any other name. The vibe is one-to-one. Even looking at thumbnails of it while I edited, it's hard to differentiate it from Zelda 64 visually. It's insane how much it just looks like it. But that's about where it ends. Yeah, the vibe is the same, but it's kind of skin deep. And I'm not being rude. It's just, that's how it is. Where Ocarina of Time is an in-depth epic with plot, deep gameplay mechanics, all-time soundtrack. Some would say the GOAT. I think that's what the kids call things these days. It's goated, I think they say. Valkie 64 is really none of those. That isn't to say it's bad. It's not. It's good. I really enjoyed it. I played about 5 hours. Came up short of the final boss because I got heavily filtered by there's these giant flytrap plants at the end, and they're just, geez Louise. Visually, yes, it's a faithful homage. Boys, like I said, it's, blind taste test, that's not the right word, sight test. I can't hardly pull it apart. The use of low poly, low resolution backgrounds perfectly nails that sense of scale in Ocarina levels. The one that comes especially to mind is, I don't remember where it is, the little village, and you can see the giant Mount Doom thing in the distance, and it's like, wow, that's crazy. And honestly, the level to which it is faithful makes it feel like it could be a ROM hack, of which there are some good Ocarina of Time ROM hacks out there, by the way. The world consists of a hub, which is like floating in air, and there's like this guardian that gives you your quest or whatever. I don't really know what the story is, to be quite honest. It splits into 4 overworlds, each with a village, a dungeon, a large open world area that has some side quests. All the areas are very themed. So there's like the wood area, there's the ice area, there's the fire area, there's the desert area, and the desert area is hard. Okay, like I'm not great at games, but I got my booty whipped hard. Speaking of the side quests though, unfortunately, we're talking just glorified fetch quests here. Okay. Usually as simple as walking over an item and returning it to the village, usually just for a heart container. Because there's really not a lot of items in this game, right? There's heart upgrade, there's no boomerang, bottles, hook shot, and there's not like any of that at all. One of the sword upgrade, which there is only one, by the way, is locked behind one of those fetch quests. So, whatever. But once you get going, the first thing you notice that isn't quite right is the combat. Unlike Ocarina of Time, Valkie employs use of parries, which sometimes work and sometimes don't, which is frustrating because later on an upgrade makes parries a good part of your damage. Now, disclaimer, I accept this might be an issue with my controller. It's a good controller, but hey, roll tide. But for the sake of the review, I'm assuming it isn't. Apologies to the dev if it is. There's a jump attack too I could never really figure out, but that's about it as far as combat. Now, of course, Ocarina's combat wasn't revolutionary. Of course, then again, maybe it was. But it had enough variety with the bow, the hook shot, the different swords, the different shields, blah, 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 to make it interesting. Valkie has 2 swords and 2 pairs of armor. And that's it. There's not even any magic. There's no bow. There's no fairies in a bottle. There's none of that, which limits your entire moveset to melee, which makes a lot of the combat extremely tedious and sometimes outright annoying, especially when going against a boss that doesn't have a move you can parry, and instead you just have to circle strafe around it for an hour. Monster variety is lacking too, with maybe a dozen max different monsters. In that, I'm including a few slime reskins in that, so I'm being generous. None of the mobs or even the bosses are particularly hard, save for the ice dungeon boss, who wasn't so difficult. It was just tedious because you couldn't parry anything you did. Musically, I have to take away from it a little as well. Ocarina soundtrack, my God, That's iconic. I mean, that's one of those. That's the first few notes you go. I know that sound, and it's nostalgia, and it comes up, it bubbles up, and you go, I remember that. I remember playing that as a kid, and it feels good. But it had that certain edge. It was like, how do I explain? It wasn't like MIDI, right? It wasn't like RuneScape music or something. But kind of at the same time, it's a little retro, a little lo-fi, I guess you would call it. I don't know. The music in Valkie too much. I keep wanting to say Valkyrie. It's not Valkyrie. It's not Valkyrie. It's not Valkyrie 64. It's Valkie 64. The music in Valkie is, compared to the Ocarina music, a little too modern sounding. There's no bitness to it. I don't know what the word there would be, but it sounds like you're playing on a computer in 2025, right? It doesn't sound like devs tried to jam a whole soundtrack into a, 16 megabit cartridge. I don't know how big the N64 cartridge is. There's not a lot of space though. I know that. Not a lot of space though. And there's not a lot of variety to the soundtracks either. I think the overworld and then the dungeons have unique soundtracks, and that's about it. Overall, I do heavily recommend Valkie 64, especially if you're a fan of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. It plays well enough, and it's close enough to almost fool you for a second. And at $5 on Steam, or even cheaper if you want to wait for a sale, hey, it's hard to say no. That's $1 per hour of fun, unless you're one of those people that just zooms through stuff and you're just like, oh, look at me, I'm good at video games. Shut up! I also want to disclaimer against this second disclaimer. All my criticisms come with the reminder, this is an indie game. I don't know anything about the dev here. I don't even remember their name off the top of my head. I didn't write it down. Probably a handful of people, maybe one guy. I really don't know. I really don't know. But that makes it all the more impressive that you're going to get several hours of fun and engaging gameplay for your money, especially if you do all the side quests. And then apparently, once you beat it, there's a hard mode, and you can go back through it and do it again. So, I mean, up to 10 hours, 10 or 11 hours, that's, hey, hello. The one takeaway I have from this is I want more of this. I wish there was more to this game. Just having the 4 worlds, air quotes, was, I'm not going to say disappointing, but it's one of those things where you're like, just as you get going, it's done, right? Or even other games in this style. Look, man, if you're a game developer listening to this, and you're working on your Zelda clone, but it's like a clone of, Link to the Past, delete it. We have enough. I'm sure it's good. I'm sure you're talented, but we have enough, sweetie. Okay? Shut it down. Shut it down. Make a 3D N64 Ocarina of Time like game. We need more of them.